Good morning to you. Welcome to Up to the Minute. I'm Todd Duplantis, and it is October the 7th. I know it's a Thursday, but we are glad to have you with us. The weekend, one day away. We got some special guests for you for the next half hour. And hey, it's Thursday, Virtual Family Fun Day. Dr. Tony Reyes Sutherland joins me this morning. Tony, how is it going with you this morning?
Pretty good. I'm waiting for that weekend to come. You know, we live for the weekend, don't we?
Working for the weekend. Yeah, it's one day away. So we're not that far to go with it. By the way, we are now on HCCTV with this show daily. The show is rebroadcast on HCCTV, our cable channel, at noon and 5 p.m. So if you missed this show, you can always catch us there. But as always, you can find us in social media, this show, and watch the recorded versions anytime at your convenience.
Absolutely. Just look for Houston Community College District on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I can go on, but social media.
That's exactly right. All right, Tony, stick around because you'll be interviewing this next guest in a few moments. In fact, you recognize her. She was here last week. We're talking about Susan Vanderford. Filling in for us again. We appreciate you being here, Susan. You're the Director of Programs at the George Ranch Historical Park. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
We are good. Thanks for being back here again. We're going to be talking with you more about the George Ranch and all of your programs coming up shortly. So stick around, grab a cup of coffee. We'll be with you shortly.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Okay. We're going to continue our celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month with a discussion of dialects, accents, and other differences amongst Spanish-speaking Americans. I've got a question I'm going to ask this next guest in just a few moments. Carlos Villacis is joining us this morning. He's the program chair of HCC's World Languages Department. Good morning to you, Carlos.
Good morning.
Before you get started, I got a question for you because years ago, this may surprise people, but there was a time in my life I went to U of H and I started taking Spanish classes when I was in junior high, and I took them all throughout high school. When I got to U of H, I took some of the courses, I breezed through them, and there was a short period of time where I was going to change my minor to Spanish. I didn't do so, went a different direction with the minor, but I still learned a lot. And one of my professors, you know, they teach you Castilian Spanish when you're taking it in college. He spoke some words with a lisp, you know, servicios, you know, things like that. Right. He had this lisp that he would emphasize, and he told us, he said there were many theories around why Spanish-speaking people in Europe may have a lisp in certain words. And he said it could go back to one of the kings many, many years ago who apparently had a speech impediment, and that lisp was considered proper Spanish. Is that fact, fiction, or myth?
It's a myth. It's not a, we always tell that as a joke. Sometimes it's a king, sometimes it's a queen.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we have had kings and queens in Spain, but it's a myth. It's naturally, they speak that way when they came across the pond. For some reason, they changed the pronunciation. So very few people, if none at all, unless they're from Spain, they speak that way.
So if you go to Madrid, is it more pronounced over there where people do speak with the pronounced lisp in certain words?
Right. Madrid and most of Spain, but you have to understand also that Spain has many languages, not just Castilian, like you said. Actually, when we talk about Spanish in the United States, Spanish in Latin America, we're talking about Castilian.
Right.
Because that's the real name in Spanish, Castellano, which means Castilian, from that area of Madrid. That's where it starts from. So, but otherwise, everybody understands each other, even though they have differences, dialects or regional differences in speaking, everyone understands each other.
Before we get to talking about languages, I want to congratulate you on the Shared Innovation of the Year Award a couple of years back. It was for the Zero textbook degree. And recently we had Dr. Nathan Smith on here from the Open Educational Resources talking about that program. I know it's a great program, and it really, it is life-changing for our students, because I remember back in those U of H days, paying up to $80 for books. And that was a lot back in the late 80s and early 90s.
Now it's up to 200 if you buy, but now we have also OERs, and we also have inclusive access, which makes the books cheaper.
Right. And it's a great program. So I want to get into talking about dialects. Let's talk about let's go back to the European Spaniards for coming from Europe. When a European gets here from Madrid, can you tell their dialect right away that they're from Europe when they're speaking Spanish?
Right. Almost all countries have a very particular dialect because of the way they pronounce words. Sometimes the vocabulary changes, but we can all pick that up. I mean, especially language teachers, because we are what we call friendly listeners. Because we can pick up anything, no matter how difficult it is for a a regular person that speaks Spanish. Sometimes it's difficult for them at the beginning, but then this is what I'm always saying. You sort of dial up or dial down, and then you get it after a while. Just like English,
right.
Like I have problems understanding people from Wales.
Yep.
In English, but I have to wait like 1-2 minutes, and then I'll pick it up.
Yeah, I have problems understanding people from Wales too, and thick Irish accent. Yeah, my family hails from Ireland, and man, I just don't get it. It's really difficult to understand. So I can understand that. Let's talk about something controversial or not, because when I'm speaking with someone in Spanish who I'm not familiar with, I'll use usted. However, many people may choose to use the more familiar tú. Maybe you can tell us the difference between that, and how does that work in North American Spanish if you're from Mexico or from the United States? Is it just tú, or do people say usted?
It depends, okay? For instance, when we teach Spanish, we try to make sure that we tell the difference between usted and tú. Usted is a more polite way of addressing someone that you are not on a first name basis or you meet for the first time. And then after a while, some people will say, don't use usted with me, use tú. And then we go ahead and use tú. Right. Now, there are some people like in Spain, they're very friendly, and it's not really a matter of being impolite or polite. But in Spain, most people, they're ready to use tú, unless you're addressing an older person, then they use usted. But after a while, tú is more common in Spain. But we use both. Depends on who are we talking to. In addition to that, there is another one that is using other places, because you is not only tú and usted, but also vos, VOS. And that is used in Central America, in Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala. And also it jumps and it goes to Argentina, Chile, Uruguay too. They use vos, which means you. And that's even more friendly. That definitely you use just with your siblings or good friends and so on, like that. And it's a different conjugation.
As people immigrate to the United States, does their language change in using certain words as opposed to when they may have been in their home country in Nicaragua or Mexico or something along those lines?
They do. Definitely. I'm living proof of that, because originally I came to New York from Ecuador back in the 60s. Oops, that's a long time ago. And when I found people from different countries, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Colombia, and I understood, and there was no problem. If we didn't understand a word, we simply say, well, what do you mean by that? And then they'll tell us. And then, do we pick those words? yes, when we're talking to our friends, but then when we go back to our families, we talk our dialect, so to speak,
Right.
our original dialect with my parents, my sisters, and so on. That's
Are you finding, because I learned something very valuable when I was in news, knowing Spanish in Houston was invaluable because I'd go out with photographers, and even though their last name may be Hispanic of origin, they didn't speak any Spanish. They weren't taught by their parents. Or more immigrants now who are having children born in the United States, not teaching the language, or are you finding that more people are learning Spanish? What are your thoughts on that?
Again, it goes from family to family. For instance, my sister is native born in New York, and she speaks Spanish perfectly. And she was born right here in the United States. That's because my parents took time to talk to her and so on. There are other families in which they try not to because they feel like they're going to be, once they find out that, believe it or not, they might be discriminated because they speak another language, which
right.
It seems ironic because it should be an advantage to be bilingual.
Absolutely.
But if you're speaking with somebody else in Spanish and you're in a group of people who don't speak Spanish, they don't look at you. You understand what I'm saying? It's not. They think that they're talking about you or they're talking about somebody else, and that's why they switch to the language. But I find, for instance, being bilingual, I find I can communicate in either language with another bilingual, and I feel perfectly okay. And I understand in both, in English and Spanish. There's no problem with that.
I want to ask you one final question. Spain, Mexico, and Argentina are focal points for the language through culture. Why is that?
It's because through, like in the 20th century, Mexico had like the golden age of films. That was during around the 1940s when United States was involved in World War II.
Right.
So Mexican movies, they went all over the place. And with the movies, you learn the language. It's not just movies too, it's also literature, a lot of literature in the early and the mid century. There was a lot of literature from Mexico, from Argentina, and from Spain after Spain recovered from the Civil War. So that's why I know by culture, I mean movies, literature, cooking, all kinds of things that makes the little C culture. So that's why we pick up the language. For instance, Monday, which means you're not supposed to ask somebody, if you don't hear quite well, you're not supposed to say, hey, which means what? They're frowned upon if you do that.
Yeah.
So for some reason in South America, in Ecuador, we picked up from Mexico Monday, which means please let me know. It's a very mild way of saying what if you don't understand something. Monday, and I don't see it anywhere else. I see it in Ecuador, and I was curious. And when I was watching Mexican films, I said, aha, that's where we got it from.
Yeah.
So that's how it is. That's what I mean by in Argentina, they have a different accent, and sometimes, and it's easy. Like I told you, they use the vos, and it's easy for me to use the vos, even though it's never taught in school, by the way. Tú and usted is taught in school.
Yeah.
Vos, VOS.
I was going to say, I don't remember vos from college.
No. Nobody teaches us, even in the Latin American countries or in Spain, they don't teach it. But we know it, we use it. It's like ain't, things like that in English. It ain't right. Nobody teaches that, but it's recognized, so you can use it.
Carlos Villacis, he's the program chair of HCC's World Languages Department. You guys are enrolling for the spring right now, or getting ready to enroll for the spring?
Right. And it's not only, by the way, it's not only Spanish. We also do other languages, French, Arabic, Japanese, Korean, German, and I hope I didn't forget any, because we do 7 languages.
Carlos, thanks for being here this morning and great discussion. And we're going to put some links to your program in the social media posts for the show. Thank you this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. We're going to move on, and Dr. Tony's got a special guest for Thursday Virtual Family Fun Day. Tony, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much. We have Susan Vanderford. She's the Director of Programs for George Branch Historical Park, and she's back with us this week. Welcome to the show again.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Great. Well, we learned last week so much about the George Branch Ranch and a lot of wonderful things that are going on. But today we want to talk about the Texian Market Days. So tell us a little bit about that. And it says Texian Market Days, but it's just one, right?
Well, so it is 2 days, but the Friday day is just for schools. So this is our 37th annual Texian Market Days Festival. And generally it's a Friday, Saturday thing. So Friday, we invite school groups to come out and see the park from about 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. It's about when they all have to get back to school anyway. And then Saturday, we're open to the public. So this year it's October 22nd and 23rd. And we'll have almost 1,000 school kids coming out here. And as I hopefully mentioned last week, we're on 500 acres. So it spreads out pretty good.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. Well, just real quick, in case people missed last week, give us a quick overview of the George Branch.
Yeah, sure. So we are a living history museum, and we cover over 150 years of local Texas history. So the family that ranched this land goes all the way back to the 1820s with Stephen F. Austin's original colony. And they signed their land grant here in 1824. And there's been 4 generations that have worked this land, and it all goes through the daughters. So every daughter is actually the one that inherits the land and passes it on, all the way up into the 1950s and 60s when it eventually becomes a foundation. And that's what currently runs the ranch today. So we tell the story of those 4 generations, and Texian Market Days kind of builds on that story. So it's not just about the Jones family, but we're going to have reenactors out here from the Texian Revolution. We're going to have Civil War reenactors, World War II reenactors. And so it's kind of more about what else was going on in the world that affected the ranch at those time frames. And it's living history. So we're gonna have people in costume and battle reenactments and demonstrations. And it's a whole lot of fun.
Well, it's an authentic working ranch. Is that not true?
Yeah, so the museum itself sits on about 500 acres, but the ranch itself is around 23,000. And that's run by the George Foundation. And they are big donors in Fort Bend County, but the ranch itself is leased out. So those 22,000 acres mostly get leased out to local farmers and ranchers. So we do have cattle and cotton, corn, rice growing on the property. It's leased out to other farmers. On the ranch itself, though, we do have a heritage herd of Longhorn cattle. So.
Oh, wonderful. So people can go see the Longhorns. Those are great. Real Longhorns.
Real Longhorns, yep.
Well, okay. Tell us a little bit about the rundown of the events. I know you have so many and you just gave us a quick little thing, but kind of tell us some of the different things and what are some fun activities people can go through.
So we're open on Saturday from 9 to 5. And when you get here, it's kind of go at your own pace. So again, we've got those 4 historic sites, and each one of those sites is going to have multiple activities, demonstrations throughout the day. There'll be a schedule coming out soon. It'll be posted to our website, but we'll have generally 2 battle reenactments at each of the 1830s, 1860s, and 1930s sites. So that's Texian Revolution, Civil War, and World War II. And so those are full-blown scenario reenactments, and they'll give some history on what's going on before they start. But in addition to that, we've got some musicians and performers. At the 1830s, we're going to have Kent Hargett out there with the Tejas Pioneers doing some music. And then fan favorite. They've been coming out for over 30 years. The Dr. Bushrod's Medicine Show will be back again this year at the 1890s Davis Mansion Yard.
That should be fun.
That one's always a favorite. It's kind of a music / snake oil salesman. They do a wonderful job. We love having them out here. So we've got that going on. We're going to have a Victorian Tea Party. You probably saw me earlier with my teacup. I drink tea. So we're going to have a formal tea party. Tickets for that will be special in addition to our general admission tickets. And those will be available online. It is limited. So if you're interested, get there early. And then another interesting addition for this year, Harper House Enterprises is coming out, and they're bringing a Gatling gun.
Ooh,
yeah,
that should be fun.
Yeah, they've worked on a bunch of Hollywood movies. The ones that come to mind for me are The Last Samurai, which was a Tom Cruise movie, and actually the Gatling gun plays a huge role in that. But also they've worked on 3:10 to Yuma, which is a Western, and that stars Russell Crowe, and Master and Commander, which also stars Russell Crowe, but that's a maritime, 18th century maritime movie. So they've worked on some really cool movies. They do all sorts of weapons, special effects, and they've come out here before, but it's been a little while. So we're happy to have them back to do some cool demonstrations with their Gatling gun. And it was a husband and wife duo, and apparently they were fighting about which Gatling gun to bring. So that just tells you of all the fights to have in a marriage, what Gatling gun are you going to bring?
Which one are we going to take? Okay, well, I like that. So there's some reenactments too, you said. Battleground, some other things. What is that?
Henry Jones, who was the founding father of the ranch, he was part of the Texian Revolution. So as I mentioned, he was one of Stephen F. Austin's original 300. And when the Mexican army came through this area, Mr. Henry Jones and his family actually were part of the runaway scrape, which was when the families were just trying to get away from the army as they were blasting through the area right before the Battle of San Jacinto. So we do have records of the family making it over the river, and then on their way back home after the Battle of San Jacinto, they actually went through the battlefield. So we do have some family records of that. Henry Jones had 12 children. So his 12 children, his wife, his in-laws, his brother, who also had their own family, they all kind of got up and went together. And so this reenactment will be Texian versus Mexican. We do have some cavalry soldados, and they choose a different scenario every year. I have not been party to this scenario yet, but they always do something fun. We had a really great runaway scrape event this year. That was, it was very living history. We kind of involved the people who came out here as part of the people running away from the Mexican army, and it was really well received. So we may be doing something like that. Again, depends on how many people we have, but most likely it'll just be a battlefield shootout. We will have cannon out there as well. So there's going to be lots of big booms. So
can people dress up in costume to come see it?
Absolutely. If they want to come in costume, they are more than welcome. The reenactors, of course, are all going to be in their own costumes. Our staff will be. It's kind of like the Ren Fair. If you want to dress up, you're more than welcome to.
I know, like I want to see the rag doll making. You did something about that, right?
Yeah, so that's over at our 1890s sharecropper farm, and we've got some hands-on crafts. We'll be making the rag dolls there, but we'll also be making cornhusk dolls of the 1830s. And the sharecropper farm is kind of fun because we've got these enormous pigs out there. They're Berkshires. They're on the conservation list. Mabel and Leona, they're super cute. And so you can go check them out. They're very friendly. And we've got some chickens, and we'll have the sharecropper dolls. And then we're going to be having a demonstration from the American Draft and Mule Horse Association. They're going to be doing a plowing demonstration out there. So that's going to be really cool. That's new for this year.
One other thing real quick, vintage baseball game. What is that?
So we have two groups that traditionally come out. It's the Houston Babies and the Barker Red Sox. And we set up a baseball field. The rules are a little different. I I don't baseball, so I don't know exactly what the rules are, but we do have someone on staff who's very much into baseball. And when I said they were alike, he looked at me like he was going to kill me. So the rules are completely different. Apparently you can bribe the umpire in some way, shape, or form. So it's a pretty fun game because it's a little bit different from before, and the groups they make it so much fun. But in addition to the baseball game, we're actually going to have Texas Leaguer Brewery out here selling beer. And if you don't know anything about Texas Leaguer Brewery, look them up. You can get their beer at HEB. But all of their labels are vintage baseball. So they're going to be at the baseball game selling beer. Their stuff's really good. I like Airmail and Knucklebach. Those are my two favorites. But we're super excited to have them out there with us this year. And I think it's going to be a great game. So
to purchase tickets, what do you do?
So it's part of your ticket to the park. So they're on a schedule. I believe we have two games going. We've got one at 10:30 and one at, where is it? It'll come up online. The first one's at 10:30, but there's another one. 12:30. There we go.
And they can go to the website to get tickets, right?
Yeah. So just go on our website, www.georgeranch.org. You look under events and you'll see Texian Market Days, and you can get your tickets online.
That is so wonderful. I can't wait to go. I am going to go. It's right next door to me, you might say. I live in Missouri City, so yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, bring your friends, bring your family. It's a great family event. Kids, adults, everybody loves it. So,
well, thank you. Thank you so much for being back on the show. We really appreciate it. This is wonderful. Lots of fun.
Lots of fun. Thank you so much.
Okay. Go ahead. I was going to say that was Susan Vanderford, Director of Programs for George Branch Historical Park.
They had me at Gatling guns. So not just one, you got a family with several Gatling guns. And if you learn anything from Pawn Stars, Gatling guns are worth a lot of money. There you go. All right. Your thought for the day. Okay. We've only got a few minutes left. I want to mention there are textbook savings available for our students through the Open Resources program. And we offer zero cost books, low cost books, and first day inclusive access. These are designed to save students money, still get the books for their courses. For more information, we will have a link in our social media post for the show. And Tony, we're about to run out of time. So we want to mention to anyone, if you're interested in still taking classes at HCC for the fall, your time is running out, folks. We are winding down, but spring registration will start soon. Go to hccs.edu/now for all your registration needs. Tomorrow on the show, Tony, we're continuing Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes, Samantha Rodriguez, a historian focusing on women activists of the 1960s and 70s, who will give us an overview of how Hispanic Heritage Month even came to be.
Yeah, and Jenny Waldo, you've seen her before. She's from our film department. She'll be giving us an update on her new film, Acid Test. She has a big news to share for us, and it's going to be on #Film Friday. So make sure you join us for that. All right, we're wrapping up the show for today. Remember, we're on at noon and 5 p.m. on HCCTV. Watch the show there. Join us live every morning, including tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Where's your emergency?
Everyone's on their way. What happened?
Your friend's not breathing.